morning. My name is Jonathan Chio. I am a third-year PhD student at the University of Toronto. My PI is Dr. Michael Failings, and I'm very humble and honored to meet Dr. Jim Hogg.
Well, thank you. My name is Jim Hogg. I'm a pathologist interested in the lung, and I'm a graduate of this medical school at the University of Manitoba, and I now work at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver.
What served as the catalyst for you to study lung disease, and in particular, COPD?
Well, the experiences I had as a medical student here in Winnipeg, I met a professor of physiology by the name of Joe Dope, who ran a very innovative course that gave us a chance to do a research project. In our second year of medical school, he canceled all the physiology labs, so we had all that time to do a research project. And I was assigned to Dr. Ruben Cherniak, who was a famous graduate from this medical school. He was a chest physician and a very, very well-known pulmonary physiologist. And that experience made me think about a career in research. I grew up in a small town in northwestern Ontario, so I really thought I'd be a general practitioner in a similar place. But the research experience I had here as a medical student was enough that I tried it when I got to do my postgraduate work, and I signed up for a master's degree at McGill in experimental medicine. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of that year I was hooked, and I completed a PhD. And then since then I've become a pathologist and am a card-carrying pathologist, but I only work on the lung. My work is a mixture of diagnostic work on lung disease and research into the structure and function of the lung, really.
What served to be the Eureka moment in that landmark change?
We developed a technique where we get the explanted lung from the patient who's having the lung transplant. When they decide to have a lung transplant, it's an opportunity to meet them, mm-hmm. and they're asked if they would donate their lung to this research project. And those that agree, we get it as soon as it comes out of the patient, and we inflate it immediately and freeze it solid in liquid nitrogen vapor. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really the technique that's allowed us to get us where we've got to with this understanding of the distribution of airway resistance and the nature of the airway resistance. Mm-hmm. I think the most exciting time is when we first discovered, with the three-dimensional technique that you can get from imaging these days, that the terminal bronchioles, which we always knew were obstructed, how many of them were destroyed. Mm-hmm. And we now know that people with very mild disease have already lost about 20% of their airways. And by the time you get down to the severe airways disease, like these patients have to get a lung transplant, you can have lost up to 60 or 80% of your terminal bronchioles, so you haven't got much left.
Nice.
So it's a progressive loss that starts very early in the disease, and it behooves us to find ways to treat it, before it gets to the bad stage.
So what led you to pursue the area of research at RCAF Greenwood?
Actually, Toronto has the first human centrifuge that was ever built.
Interesting.
And it was built in World War II when Dr. Banting had gone to Europe Dr. Banting, I'm sure you know, being from Toronto, is the person who discovered insulin.
Yep.
He spoke to a pilot that he knew, and he said, well, what are the problems with flying? And he said, well, the greatest problem we have with these high-performance aircraft are the pulling tight turns, and the G-forces pool the blood in your legs, and then you faint, and that isn't a good time to faint. When they built this centrifuge, it was trying to reconstruct what the pilot went through and study that. And also study it in animal situations. We could really make a lot more measurements than you could on living humans.
What advice would you give me such that my policy will actually benefit those affected by COPD, whether it be the patient or the family members?
There's the public health, but you can only go so far with that, and eventually, tobacco has to be controlled. I think it's an open question as to whether the new vaporized smoking, I think anything that delivers particles in your lung is bad until proven otherwise, and certainly nobody has shown that it's good for you. All of those policies are should be looked at continuously, and I think we have a ways to go there. And then really, the real answer to your question, we haven't developed a really good drug that will reverse the pathological process that we found there. And they're being found in other diseases because the nature of the pathology is similar to what you see elsewhere with chronic inflammation. But we don't have a good drug. The drugs we have will treat the symptoms of the disease, but they won't get at reversing the underlying pathology.